AITA for not wanting to name our son after wife's dead brother? I'm not naming my son after your dead brother, I shouted before I could stop myself. The whole hospital room went quiet. My wife, Sarah, froze where she stood, her face pale, eyes wide, clutching the tiny baby we'd just brought into the world. Her mom gasped like I'd just cursed God himself. Even the nurse by the door slowly backed out of the room. The baby started crying, maybe from the noise, maybe from the tension. Sarah's voice trembled as she whispered, "How could you say that, Josh?" And at that moment, I knew I had messed up badly, but in my heart, I also knew I wasn't wrong. That's where everything broke between us, but maybe I should start from the beginning. Sarah and I had been married for 4 years before we finally got pregnant. It wasn't easy. 2 miscarriages, countless hospital visits, and more prayers than I can count. When the test finally turned positive, we both cried. It felt like our miracle had finally come. The pregnancy was hard. Sarah had bad morning sickness and some complications around the second trimester. We spent nights in the hospital, watching machines beat beside her bed. Through it all, I stayed with her, held her hand, and told her we'd make it. I meant it. But around the 7th month, things started to change. One night, she showed me an old photo of her older brother, Daniel, tall, smiling, wearing his army uniform. He died in an accident years before I met her. She said, "He was my protector," she said softly. "If we have a boy, I want to name him Daniel." I didn't think much of it then. I just nodded and said, "We'll see." But "we'll see" turned into "we will," and "we will" became "we must." She started talking about her brother like he was still alive. She decorated the nursery with his favorite color, blue. She even found his old baby blanket and said she wanted our son to use it. I started feeling uneasy. I didn't want our son to grow up living in another man's shadow, even if that man was her brother. I tried to bring it up gently. "Sarah, maybe we can pick another name," I said one night. "Something that's just ours, you know?" Her face hardened. "Josh, it's not just a name, it's family. You don't understand." I did understand, but I also knew grief when I saw it. She hadn't fully let her brother go, and naming our son after him felt like she was trying to bring him back through the baby. When the baby came, everything happened so fast. The delivery was tough, but Sarah made it through. They placed our tiny boy in her arms, and she whispered, "Welcome to the world, Daniel." Everyone cheered, but I stood there frozen, my heart pounding. I hadn't agreed. I hadn't said yes, yet suddenly it was done. She'd claimed the name without asking me. The nurse turned to me with a clipboard. "Sir, can you please confirm the baby's name for the birth certificate?" And that's when I snapped. The whole room stared at me in shock as my words echoed through the air. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and I could feel the weight of every decision crashing down on us. Then the door opened, and someone unexpected walked in. The door creaked open, and standing there was Sarah's father, Mr. Peterson. His expression was unreadable, the kind that made my stomach twist. He'd always been calm and polite with me, but at that moment, I saw something cold in his eyes. "I heard shouting," he said, stepping inside. "What's going on here?" Sarah didn't answer. She just sat on the bed, rocking our baby and crying silently. Her mom glared at me like I'd just cursed God himself. The nurse quietly slipped out of the room, leaving us in a thick silence. "She doesn't want to name the boy after my son?" Mr. Peterson asked, his voice tight. "It's not like that," I said quickly, with my hands raised. "I just think the baby should have his own name, not live under someone else's memory." "Memory? That memory was my firstborn. He died saving another man's life. You don't think he deserves to be remembered?" His voice rose with every word. Sarah started sobbing harder, and I felt trapped. The air in that hospital room felt heavy, like it was choking me. I tried again, softer this time. "Sir, I respect Daniel's memory. I really do. But this is our child. Sarah and I should both agree on his name." Sarah finally looked up at me then, her face streaked with tears. "So what, Josh? You don't want to honor my brother? The man who meant everything to me?" I wanted to say, "I want to honor you, not your brother." But that felt too cruel. So I just said, "I want our son to be his own person, Sarah." Her mother gasped. "His own person? He's a baby. What kind of man denies his wife this small comfort after all she's been through?" Small comfort. Those words echoed in my mind. I'd watched Sarah nearly die giving birth. I'd held her through every tear, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying to replace her brother through our child, and I wasn't sure what that would do to any of us. The argument went nowhere. Finally, the nurse came back, pretending not to notice the tension, and said she needed the name immediately for the hospital records. Sarah looked at me with a final, pleading stare, the kind that says, "Please don't fight me on this." But I couldn't do it. I turned and walked out of the room. I paced the hallway, my thoughts spinning. What if I really was the bad guy here? What if I was ruining one of the most important days of our lives? Still, deep down, I knew I couldn't agree just to keep peace. Then my phone buzzed, a message from Sarah's sister, Lily. "You need to come back, now." I rushed back to the room, my heart racing. The door was slightly open. I heard voices, angry, low voices. When I stepped inside, I froze. Sarah was clutching the baby tight, tears streaming down her face, while her dad stood by the window, phone in hand. "If you won't honor my son, then maybe you don't deserve to be part of this one's life either." And before I could respond, he pressed the button on his phone, and I realized he was calling someone I never thought would get involved in our marriage. "Hello, Pastor," Mr. Peterson said into the phone, his voice calm but sharp like a blade. "Yes, I'm at the hospital. We need to pray for Sarah and the baby, and for her husband, who's struggling to understand family." My stomach dropped. He wasn't just calling anyone. He was calling Sarah's childhood pastor, the same man who'd married us, blessed our home, and who Sarah trusted more than almost anyone. Sarah sat silently on the bed, holding the baby close. Her mother kept whispering to her, "Don't let him change your mind, dear. Daniel deserves this." I stood there, feeling like an outsider in my own family. Mr. Peterson put the phone on speaker, and soon Pastor Ben's deep voice filled the room. "Josh, son, I'm hearing troubling things. Why are you refusing to name your child Daniel? That name carries blessing and memory." I swallowed hard. "With all respect, Pastor, I just want our child to have his own start. A name that's not tied to grief." There was a pause. Then the pastor sighed. "Sometimes love means carrying someone else's pain until they can put it down. Maybe this is one of those times, my boy." Sarah's head lifted slightly, her eyes hopeful. "See? Even Pastor Ben understands." Something in me cracked. I wanted to yell, to cry, to explain that it wasn't just about the name. It was about us. About how since the pregnancy started, I'd felt more like a background character in Sarah's story, one written by her grief, not our love. I tried to keep calm. "Pastor, I love my wife. I want her to heal. But I think naming our son after her brother will keep her stuck in the past." The line went silent. Then Sarah snapped. "You think I'm stuck? My brother died, Josh. You'll never understand what that feels like." Her voice broke into sobs. The baby started wailing too, and Sarah's mom quickly took him to calm him down. I stepped closer to Sarah, but she turned her face away. Then Mr. Peterson spoke again, quietly but firmly. "Josh, maybe you need some time apart to think about what kind of father you want to be." I blinked. "What are you saying?" He looked at me with cold eyes. "I'm saying maybe it's better if you don't stay here tonight. My daughter needs peace, not conflict." Sarah didn't say a word. She just looked down at the baby, rocking him gently. I felt something twist painfully in my chest. I wanted to fight back, but part of me was scared that staying would only make things worse. So I nodded slowly, picked up my jacket, and walked out. The hallway felt endless. I reached the parking lot and sat in the car, just staring at the hospital lights flickering against the night sky. My son was born, and I wasn't even allowed to hold him properly. Just as I started the engine, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lily again. "Lily, you need to come back. Something's wrong." My heart jumped. I threw the door open and ran back towards the hospital entrance. Nurses were rushing past me. I heard crying, but it wasn't a baby this time. It was Sarah. When I reached the room, the door was wide open, and Sarah was on her knees holding the baby, screaming his name. But it wasn't Daniel. It was something else entirely. Something I didn't recognize. When I stepped into the room, my breath caught. Sarah was on the floor, rocking the baby, whispering a name I'd never heard before. "Eli, Eli, please stay with me." The baby's tiny cries were fading, weak and sharp. Nurses surrounded her, trying to take the child, but she wouldn't let go. "He's fine," she screamed. "He's just tired. He's fine." "Sarah, please let them help you," I begged, kneeling beside her. My voice cracked. She turned to me, her eyes wild and desperate. "You did this, Josh. You brought this bad energy into the room with your shouting." I froze. My world blurred for a second. The lights, the voices, the sounds of alarms. A nurse gently pried the baby from her arms, rushing him to the incubator. The doctor barked orders. Sarah clutched her chest, trembling, and I held her tight as tears soaked her gown. A minute felt like an hour before the doctor came back. "She's okay," she said. "Just some breathing distress. We'll monitor him closely." Sarah collapsed against me, sobbing. I didn't even realize I was crying too. Relief flooded through me, but so did something else. Confusion. Why had she called him Eli? When she finally calmed down, I asked her, "Sarah, who's Eli?" She looked dazed, like she didn't even remember. Then she whispered, "I don't know. It just came out." The whole room went quiet. Her parents exchanged confused looks, and for the first time that night, Mr. Peterson had no words. I stayed by Sarah's side as the nurses moved around us, checking monitors and adjusting wires. She wouldn't look at me, just staring at the incubator. "He's so small, like Daniel was when he was a baby." Her voice broke again. Later that night, when things settled, I stepped out of the room to get some air. Lily was waiting outside, her face pale. "Josh," she said quietly, "there's something I think you should know." I frowned. "What is it?" She glanced towards the room, then back at me. "Before Sarah got pregnant, she used to go to the cemetery a lot, but not just to see Daniel." "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "She had another miscarriage before the one you know about, a baby boy. She never told you because she didn't want to relive it. His name was Eli." My heart dropped to my stomach. "She's been carrying that pain for years," Lily whispered. "I think that's why she wanted to name this baby Daniel. She thought if she didn't name him after her brother, maybe she'd feel like she'd forgotten both of them." I stood there speechless. Everything suddenly made sense. Her obsession with names, her mood swings, her quiet nights staring at old photos. She wasn't just grieving Daniel. She was grieving two people. Before I could respond, Lily's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then her face turned white. "Josh," she said, trembling, "you need to come. Now." We ran back into the room, and what I saw made my knees go weak. Sarah was standing beside the incubator, her hand on the glass, whispering something over and over, and the baby's monitor had just started beeping faster. Too fast. The monitor's sharp beeping filled the room, cutting through every other sound. Nurses rushed in, one shouting for the doctor. Sarah stood frozen beside the incubator, her hands still pressed against the glass, whispering, "Please, Eli, please stay." "Sarah, step back," the nurse yelled as they began checking the baby's vitals. The doctor entered moments later, adjusting tubes, giving orders, her voice calm but quick. I could hardly breathe. I moved to Sarah, grabbing her shoulders. "Sarah, let them help him." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, you don't understand. He wants to be called Eli. Every time I said Daniel, he cried. But when I said Eli, he stopped. It's his name, Josh." I felt my heart breaking, part from fear, part from the raw pain in her voice. "Sarah, he's a newborn. He doesn't—" "Stop," she screamed, her voice echoing. "I feel it. I know it." Then suddenly, the beeping slowed. The doctor sighed in relief. "He's stabilizing. Heart rate's back to normal." Everyone froze. Sarah's knees gave out, and I caught her just before she hit the ground. She was trembling, whispering, "He's Eli. I know it now." The doctor gave us both a worried look, but said nothing. The room slowly cleared out, leaving just the two of us and the soft hum of the incubator. I helped Sarah back onto the bed. For a while, we sat in silence. Finally, she looked up at me. "Josh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push you away. I couldn't lose another boy without remembering the ones I already lost." My throat tightened. I sat beside her, holding her hand. "You didn't have to carry that alone, Sarah. You should have told me." She nodded weakly. "I thought if I named him Daniel, maybe I could make peace with all of it. But when I saw his face, it wasn't Daniel. It wasn't anyone else. It was him. Our son." Her words hit me deep. All the anger, all the confusion, it just fell away. The next morning, the nurse came in with the birth papers again. She smiled gently. "Have you both decided on a name now?" Sarah turned to me. Her eyes were tired but calm this time. "Josh?" I took the pen. For a long moment, I stared at the blank line. Then I wrote, slowly and clearly, "Eli Joshua Peterson." When I looked up, Sarah was crying quietly, not the broken sobs from before, but the soft kind that comes after peace finally finds its way back. I sat beside her, watching the tiny rise and fall of our baby's chest through the glass. I whispered, "Welcome to the world, Eli." For the first time since his birth, Sarah smiled. But as we sat there, thinking everything was finally okay, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number. "Unknown. You shouldn't have named him that. You have no idea what you've done." My blood ran cold as I looked toward the nursery window and saw a figure standing there, watching us through the glass. The message haunted me for days. I tried to brush it off as a cruel prank, but every time I looked at baby Eli, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was still watching. We moved back home after a week, trying to settle into parenthood. Sarah slowly found peace, talking to a therapist, and finally letting go of her brother's ghost. She smiled more now. She sang to Eli every night, and each time he calmed the moment she said his name. But one night, while I was rocking him to sleep, I heard a faint whisper. It wasn't Sarah. It was a man's voice, soft, right behind me. "Thank you for choosing the right name." I turned around, but no one was there. Eli just smiled up at me, wide awake, his tiny hand gripping my finger. I never told Sarah what I heard. Some things, I think, are better left between fathers and sons.